So, do you have writing projects that seem to go nowhere? You're stuck and you don't know what to do? This is Michelle Thompson. I'm your academic and legal coach, and I am here with your weekly writing tip. I have written tons for law, tons for academia, and I've learned a lot about writing, and I want to pass on what I know to you. So, this week's writing tip is all about moving past criticism, because I think many of us wither under it easily. So, speaking for academia, we receive criticism in so many ways, right? So, as an industry, it feels like it can feel this way that what we write about is actually relevant. We just have our own little cone of knowledge, and no one really cares about that cone of knowledge, right? And people often critique it for being inaccessible. And another critique is that what we write is liberal claptrap. And I highlight this because, well, starting today, we're entering in a new period in the United States, and we have to start to inoculate ourselves against all of these criticisms, right? The criticism that what we do is irrelevant, that nobody cares, is inaccessible, and is a liberal claptrap right now. We have to do that right now. So I think these particular critiques really resonate with women because sexism is set up to belittle what we do and who we are and our accomplishments. And that's what makes criticism so hard for us. And within our disciplines, we also are subject to a lot of scrutiny about what we write, right? That is the very nature of the peer review process. People on our committees have plenty of it to aim our way, right? If you wrote a dissertation or you're going up for tenure, you've totally experienced this. When we start to publish, we do or do not get published based on the critiques that other people give of our work. And even if something is published, we have now entered public conversations that are going on in our field, and we are subject to critiques which sometimes end up being withering. Colleagues also provide criticism under the guise of peer review, and sometimes they're just nasty people who are trying to trip us up, right? So I talked about all of this in the context of academia, and this is the case for so many other fields with so many other procedures, and it's important that we're very aware of how the institutional mechanisms through which criticism comes. So it's impossible to avoid it. I'm sorry, I wish I had better news, but you can't really avoid criticism. So once you get that criticism, how do you proceed? So the first step, for step number one, is to turn within. And you have to turn within because you're probably hurt and pissed, especially if it's a rejection, right? I know this because I have submitted an article to 2 different journals 3 different times, and they got rejected. And I'm just like, what, are you kidding me? That's some of the best writing I've get served up on a platter for you. Whew. So I had to kind of think through what was going on, right? It's a good time to take out the journal where you're writing in and keeping track of your personal thoughts, and ask yourself the following questions. And there are a lot of them. So here are the questions. What is the voice of that person offering the critique? Because sometimes when we get all freaked out about something, it's actually not the people who are issuing the critique. It could be a parent, it could be a sibling, any number of people, right? What is the accent of those people? I know for me, when I'm being super hard on myself, it's often a British accent. Don't ask, it is. What are they saying? What are they actually saying? What are they really, really saying? Not like what hit your ear and tripped you up. What are they really saying? What was their motivation? You have to separate the person who delivered the critique from the other people who take up far too much space in our heads, right? So for the other people who are like I don't know, we'll call them the peanut gallery for nothing, a better term. How did you respond to that peanut gallery at the time that they critiqued you? That's you have to write that down and think that through. And how did the situation at that time differ that warranted that particular response? Does that response work now? That's a lot of questions to journal about, but they're important ones to kind of get you to see why, for you, criticism is so fraught. So after you do that and kind of come to terms internally, well, not quite after, but after you journal, you may actually need to take a deep breath from your work and take some time away from it. Don't take too long, right? If you're trying to get a job or get tenure, the rest of it, you really don't have that much time. But you're trying to publish. But take a little bit of time off. Take a week and just say, I can't. So now that you have questions that can help you distinguish the past from the present, you're now in a position to move on with the criticism in hand. So your next step is to evaluate. So step number 2 is evaluate. So now that you know the difference between the made up people and the current people, what is the current critique? What is actually the current critique? What are they actually saying about your work? It probably isn't you suck. It just isn't. I know even with those 2 rejections, one of them said, we absolutely need to be publishing on something like this. So they weren't saying that my work was a hot mess. They were giving me real critique. What is useful about that criticism? What can you take with it and do something with it, right? And what will applying that criticism do to improve your work? So using myself as an example again, I was totally pissed with the journals, but as I delved into it, I could see that there was actually something incredibly useful and important there. And they actually offered me a resource that I always needed with my work. They also gave me another way to look at my writing and critique it. And what the stuff that I have under review now is so much better than it started at first. Never mind my hurt. So after you turn within and evaluate, your third step is to integrate. That's right, integrate that criticism into your work. Sometimes you actually get criticism that doesn't make sense, and bring others on board and ask them for feedback about what they're saying, right? So journal number 2 said, your work is not analytical. Whoops. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. So I actually asked other people in my field to read my work and to give me feedback on it. And they totally helped me understand that I come to conclusions in my mind, but I don't lay out how I come to those conclusions. And now when I read and edit my work, I can read for an eye to that. So bring on others on board if you don't understand what they're doing as you try to integrate what they're saying. And once you've finished, revel in the much improved piece of writing. I promise it's really improved and you're really going to enjoy it. You deserve it. So that's my set of thoughts about criticism. I want to know, what are the effective and ineffective ways you have dealt with criticism? How do you manage that? I would love to see that in the comments. So if you have any questions about this, about writing or anything, send me a note. And if this is your first time watching my videos, like the page. You get lots of good tips on writing and other thoughts related to law and academia. And I will also put in the comments box my link for my newsletter. Please sign up, and you can get things that I don't do online in my newsletter. With that, I will be swift, be sharp, and so long. Have a good weekend.